Hi Copic and the Craft Room friends. I have a very short tutorial for you today. This is kind of a mini. I talked about showing how I did the technique on the Japanese lantern, and this is what the finished image ended up looking like. I ended up having to look for, see if I can find them real quick, look for images of a Japanese lantern because I had never heard of that plant before. And I'm not going to find it here real fast on my phone, but they're really unique in that the plant, when you initially see them, has this real distinct kind of orangey red color to it. And I found those photos to start because those are the ones that are just growing and blooming, but I didn't quite understand this image from Ann Corbiere. I was trying to figure out, I'm not sure all of those little tiny lines on it. As I continued to scroll through my Google search, though, I found out that the skin of that plant, that kind of pod, actually kind of peels away as it ages, and you end up with this netting that encompasses then this red globe in the center. I mean, it truly is breathtaking to see the plants. So if you haven't seen them before, you definitely want to Google those and take a look. So this is an image from Ann Corbiere, and I decided to give myself the challenge of trying to do this and make it look like the plant. So what you'll see if you look these up, you can kind of see these little lines that Ann has left behind that are solid. Well, all of these little tiny lines are also solid. So my goal was to come back in and leave dimension on every single one of these little black lines that she's drawn. So I do this similar to how I would do if I was trying to leave the veins on a leaf lighter. So what I chose to do is I came in and just start in a section, get really large so you guys can see this, and I'll try to keep my hand out of the way as much as possible. And I just tried to be consistent. So this already has the white edge, and then I'm gonna keep the top like right below the black line. I'm also gonna keep that white. So I'm gonna say everything is gonna be white to the right of the line and below the line. So I'm not going to color all the way up to that black line. I'm going to leave that white gap, and then I'm going to come up underneath and leave the white gap below the black line. So to the right of the line and below the line. So on the other two sides, and most of these have kind of four sides to them, even though they're not rectangles, but I'm going below the line and to the right of the line, below the line, and to the right of the line. So on the other two sides, it is connecting with the black line or going right up to the black line. So I'm going to do a couple small sections here so you can kind of see that. To the right, below, to the right. This one has an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, kind of side to it, and that's why there's an extra little piece there. But if I go slow, this works. I just have to kind of keep going consistently slow. Now, there were two added little challenges here, and I'll work my way over so you guys can see where my challenge was. I assume, so, and then as I bump into this white line, see that's the white line to the right of this one, so this can go right up against it and down to the right and below to the right, runs into there. Here's my white line. To the right. And if I just kind of slowly go through, and I am sure in my original one that I missed a few. I am not doubting that whatsoever. So if you really walked through and looked at every single one, I am sure there are ones that got the white line on the wrong side or didn't get a white line where it needed one. Didn't get a white line at all. I have no doubt there's a few of those. And some of these get so small that it's almost impossible to hold on to that completely. But here's what I'm going to say. 2 places that were a little more challenging, or that presented challenges, I assume because I can see through that netting that I should be able to see the leaf behind the netting. So I went ahead and when I did this, I used BV23 for the background. So that's around the outside of the globe. And then, but I filled all of that in. And then as I got further out, and this is out on the exterior of the cart, I used a BV25 and even a BV29. But under that netting area, I used BV23. So I kept that consistent. I didn't try to make that any harder. But I've got 2 areas right in here and right here that should have the leaf behind it. So what I decided to do was add some of that color of the leaf. So I took one of the colors that I used on the leaf, YG67, and I literally went right over the top of the BV23. And I kind of watched, like, see where the end of that edge of the leaf ends. I brought it around and kind of back in. So even in some of these sections, you might only have a portion of that green. And again, it's not precise because it's not going to be, we're not going to see it perfectly through all that netting. It's more to give the viewer the hint of the fact that we can see that leaf through that image. So all of these little guys would go green. And because I've already mapped it with the BG, or the BV, it's easy to go back in. The other thing, doing that blue-violet first, is that it's going to cool that down even further and gray that down even further than what's on the leaf itself. So I was pretty pleased with how that turned out. You could even use the YG63, keep it a little more subtle. And I can't remember which one actually I used on there. The next challenge was that globe piece, because I still wanted to give that effect of that window. Let's see. And all that netting. So I used some R0s and R1s, kind of a funky combination. And I did the same thing on the globe that I did on the others. Kind of tried to stay consistent with my to the right and below. And I went ahead and did the entire circle this time. And then the problem is it's a sphere. And so I didn't want it to necessarily be totally flat. I wanted it to have some of that shape. And the trick now is really watching those edges, because I know my eyes get lost in there you know, where's the edge of the globe versus the edge of this netting piece. And so give yourself some grace. You're going to probably make a few mistakes along the way. I know I am already making a few on this one, so I'm trying to visit with you and also get this colored in somewhat. So to me, the challenge was then making it look more round though. And I just wanted to show you kind of what I did to get there. And this is not going to be the exact colors I use, so forgive me there. I tell everyone to make sure to write down what they're using, and for some bizarre reason on this one I did not get it written down, so I can guess, but I'm not 100% sure by any means. All right, just about there. That one's up against the white at the top, so it doesn't. And the netting, when I looked up images, the netting actually is white, kind of a creamy white color. So you could pretty much leave it. Debatable. All right, so I've got most of that kind of mapped out, and I do that with my lightest color. So this was an R14. I'm going to shift to an R08, and this is going to come from the bottom up. This is going to add that feel of that little bit of orange, which I really want. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill in the same amount, about a third of the way up. But then as I start getting a little bit higher, it's not going to go all the way to the top. So these guys down here would need it too. And then I can come back with a third color. The interesting part about this is we'll need very little blending. So hopefully you can see I've got kind of a halfway or part way through these squares right here. And actually I'm not going to go a lot back and forth, so I could go right back with my R14. And it's only in that section, so the blending is actually extremely fast. I don't need to go any lower. Okay, but I could add one more. Let's do, I don't know if this is dark enough. No. So coming around that bottom edge, doesn't need to come up very high, but just giving a sense of that round shape, kind of bringing it in from these corners as well. That was the first one. This one. Here we go. I brought it up. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the bottom half, that we were bringing that shape up and around so it looks more sphere-like. Such a funny word, sphere. All right. So now it looks a little more like a ball. Anyway, this is how I colored that image. this is how it turned out. But I promised I would come back and show you guys how that was accomplished. So there you go. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you'll give that little bit of a challenge an attempt. It's kind of fun. Just plan on it taking some time. And remember, with Copics, you can do a section and come back to it later. You don't have to have it all done in one session. This is one that's going to take a little longer. So just enjoy the process and let it feel good, be artsy and colorful for the day. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you are watching the news about my online new Copic College class that is being, the classroom will actually open on January 4th, but it's for sale now. So if you haven't read up on that, make sure to go to my blog and check that out as well, please. Thank you very much. Everybody out there, have a happy, colorful day.